If you want a smaller waist, as long as you don't go overboard like Eugenia Looney or I mean Cooney, then go for it. Don't let these fat activists who have serious eating disorders talk you out of it. If you want a smaller waist, don't feel guilty about it. You're not fat phobic. Welcome back to Anti-Woke and Autistic. Did you know it is perfectly okay to want a smaller waist? It's not a crime to want a smaller waist. But the fat activist camp and even some smaller body positive influencers want you to think it's practically a crime to want a smaller waist, especially if your waist is really big. Now, let's admit it, this doesn't look as good as this. Again, this doesn't look as good as this. But when a woman looks like this, I mean, she's plump in there. She's overweight. And if a woman who looks like this would rather look like this, she's called fatphobic. She's called somebody who has an eating disorder, body dysmorphia, some kind of mental health issue, or poor self-esteem, or she's not comfortable in her skin, or poor self-worth, or low confidence, something like that. All she wants to do is just have a better midsection and waistline. What is so wrong about that? Let's face it, this doesn't look nearly as good as this. The irony is that when an overweight man wants to lose weight and trim his waistline, very few women label him as fat phobic or having a restrictive eating disorder, having low self-esteem, or being a victim of diet culture or some other nonsense. What's wrong with wanting a waist that looks like this? What's wrong with wanting a waist that looks like this? I mean, that looks pretty good. Now, if you starve yourself to achieve a waistline like that, or call it a midsection or abs, whatever you want to call it, if you go on a gimmicky fad like non-sustainable approach, such as drinking only vegetable juice, the cabbage diet, the cabbage soup diet, the tomato juice diet, or something that's not sustainable, that's unrealistic to stick to long term, yeah, you need to rethink things. But for many people, especially this individual here or this individual, all they need to do is maybe cut out the soda, replace juice with whole fruit, eat fewer processed foods, and manage their portion control. Instead of having two big helpings of mashed potatoes, you have one. Maybe they can do without the gravy on the mashed potatoes. Instead of having 5 pancakes, you have 2 or 3. Instead of having a triple cheeseburger, you have a single cheeseburger. Instead of a large fries, you have a small fries. Instead of a bowl of cereal this big, you have one this big. Instead of 3 pieces of toast for breakfast, you have 1 piece of toast. Instead of putting a huge pat of butter on your toast, maybe you try toast with just a little bit of jam and no butter. It's little changes like that that all add up, especially when you combine them with increased exercise. Doesn't mean you have to pedal a stationary bike 3 hours a day or be in the gym 4 hours a day. But if you're not strength training and you add strength training to your lifestyle, that alone would make a big difference. If you're sedentary and you take up exercise and better eating habits, as I just described, you can actually make a big visible difference in your body weight, in your composition, in your waistline. You could do high intensity interval training, just 20 minutes of it 3 times a week, even 2 times a week, can help you lose excess fat. Working the large muscle groups of the body, the chest muscles, the back muscles, but particularly the legs, the hamstrings, the glutes, and the quads, like doing squats, deadlifts. If you do big compound movements like that, they increase your body's energy needs. They dramatically increase your body's energy needs if you work out intensely doing those exercises. So that combined with a better diet of portion control, you could really lose a lot of weight and be healthier, because any doctor will tell you that excess fat in the midsection causes or increases the odds of developing reflux disease, and that's no picnic. So some people want a smaller waist for health reasons. Who are these fat acceptance people? How dare they declare them as having body dysmorphia, eating disorders? They're the ones who have the eating disorders, either binge eating disorder or compulsive overeating disorder, or both. And here they are labeling anybody who wants a smaller waist as having restrictive eating disorder, or they're on their way to developing anorexia nervosa. They don't have self-esteem or any confidence. How dare they? The fat acceptance camp, as well as some smaller body positivity or body love influencers, are among the most judgmental people out there. Here's the irony. We have these fat acceptance, fat activist, fat liberation people, women, almost always, claiming that to F your beauty standards, yet they follow all the other beauty standards. They typically have 1 or 2 pounds of makeup on. They have fake hair, like extensions, weaves, hair colors, spray tans. All right, so we have Tess Holliday here. Tess Holliday, the plus-sized supermodel and creator of F Your Beauty Standards, the hashtag, the movement. She's representing Isle of Paradise spray tanner. How do you like that? That goes against F Your Beauty Standard. Aren't you supposed to be comfortable in your skin? Why is it that if somebody wants a smaller waist, they're labeled as fatphobic, but if somebody wants a more golden or bronze color to their skin and they spray themselves with a chemical, who for all we know might cause cancer in 10 or 20 years, how come they're not called, I don't know, pale skin phobic? And here's Tess Holliday pitching a spray tan, and a lot of morbidly obese influencers, I guarantee it. They sun themselves to get a tan, which of course is a lot more dangerous than simply improving your eating habits and adopting more exercise. Those won't cause cancer, but getting a lot of sun can cause skin cancer. Yet nobody questions them and says, well, why don't you just accept your pale skin? Your pale skin is beautiful and perfect just the way it is. Don't try to change it. Love yourself. Love the skin you were born with. Nobody ever says that to somebody who wants a spray tan. Why is that? It's a double standard. Nobody ever says, accept and love your straight brown hair. That's what nature gave you. Don't put artificial dyes in it to make it purple and blue, and don't put a hot iron to it to make it wavy, or don't add hair extensions, which could cause stress on your hair follicles and cause your hair to fall out. Do anything unnatural like that. Just wear your hair natural the way it is, and if it just hangs limply and it's like a dull brown, love it for what it is. You're perfect just the way you are. Because if you want to make your hair curly, then you have straight hair phobia. If you want to put blue and purple in your hair, you have brown hair phobia. How come we don't hear all these fat activists saying things like that? Why is that? Why are they so fixated on just the idea of getting a smaller waist, or smaller thighs for that matter, or smaller upper arms, a thinner looking face? Now, I understand though if this gets out of hand. For instance, like this woman here, some people might consider her too thin. Though she only seems like she's too thin because more and more people are obese and morbidly obese. And these morbidly influencers, sad to say, are gaining momentum in the TikTok world and on Instagram. They're pushing for representation and they've had a lot of victories in that area. And so somebody who looks like this is considered thin. Now, I'll tell you what thin is. If you want to look like this, if you want to go from this to this, all right, you might have a problem there. You might have some issue with body image, self-esteem. There's definitely something going on. If you want to go from this to this, she looks weak and frail. She might she might be naturally built like this, but if somebody wants to look like this because they think it looks good, then we have to wonder what's going on with their mental health and their self-image, their body image, their perception of themselves, their perception of what they see in the mirror. However, she's a lot preferable to this. That's TikTok and Instagram star Eugenia Cooney, all 62 pounds of her. She clearly has anorexia nervosa. Clearly. One need not be a doctor to see the obvious. Now, if we compare her to her, if Eugenia Cooney started looking like this, that would be an improvement. But this is somebody who, when a woman is afraid to eat a cheeseburger and an ice cream cone, she's got to be pretty boring. It's amazing she's still alive. Her hair looks fake too. There's no way that's her natural hair because her body is too thin. She's not getting enough food to support hair growth. That looks like fake hair. Body positivity influencers who are on the dark side or the sinister side of body positivity and fat acceptance people, fat liberation, fat activists are extremely judgmental. If somebody wants a smaller waist, as long as they're not going to extremes, as long as they're not trying to look like Eugenia Cooney, as long as they're not starving themselves and eating only 300 calories a day, as long as they're being smart and reasonable about their attempts to get a smaller waist, who is anybody to criticize that and label them as having some kind of disorder? That's their prerogative. That's their right. Just like it's a fat person's right if she wants to cover her bodies in tattoos. How would she like it if somebody said, well, you shouldn't get tattoos. You should love the skin you're in and accept it the way it is. Just a bunch of skin without any ink on it. Don't get a tattoo. Otherwise, you have plain skin phobia. Be natural. Don't get a tattoo. Tattoos are not natural. Just love the skin and accept your natural skin as it is. If God meant us to have tattoos all over our legs and arms or back, we would be born with tattoos all over our arms and legs and back. So don't get a tattoo. Imagine if Tess Holliday were told that when she started getting her tattoos. But it's the same principle. There's something about your body you want to change, whether it's tattooed eyeliner, microbladed eyebrows, or painting your eyelids purple or green, or injecting your lips to make them plumper, or injecting something in your skin to make it less wrinkly, smearing concealer on, and then putting fake freckles on your face like Tess Holliday, putting chemicals in your hair to straighten it or to make it more curly. All of these, putting fake fingernails on, all of these things are done to make that person in their eyes look better. The psychological process of that is no different than wanting to get a slimmer, trimmer waist. The difference is how the goal is achieved. Obviously, if you want a smaller waist, you're not going to take a can of spray tan and spray it on your waist and think it's going to get smaller. And if you want a bronze or golden glow to your skin, you're not going to achieve that by cutting out soda and eating fewer helpings of mashed potatoes or pasta. You achieve those goals by doing what it takes. So a smaller waist means don't eat so much, exercise more, and all of these other things. If you want If you don't want pale skin, you put some color on it. There's all sorts of foundations and concealers and whatnot. If you want curly hair, you put curls in it. You could sleep in roller curlers or put a hot iron and burn your hair to get curls. Fat acceptance people do all of these things without once considering it's the same psychological process that's involved with wanting a smaller waist and making efforts to get a smaller waist. The reason fat activists are so opposed to the concept of getting smaller is because they've failed to do it themselves. And they feel so miserable and guilty about that they convince themselves that anybody else who's working on that goal must have some kind of disorder or problem. This is Psychology 101. If you want a smaller waist, as long as you don't go overboard like Eugenia Looney or Cooney, then go for it. Don't let these fat activists who have serious eating disorders talk you out of it. If you want a smaller waist, don't feel guilty about it. You're not fat phobic. The only person who's fat phobic, I think, is Eugenia Cooney. She's scared to death to get up to 69 pounds. She just wants to stay at 62 pounds. She thinks if she gets up to, if she thinks if she breaks 70 pounds, she'll look fat. That's fat phobia. But there's no such thing as real fat phobia because a phobia is an irrational fear. Like people who are afraid of snow or clowns, or they're scared to death of of going outside their house or enclosed spaces like an elevator. It's an irrational fear. There's nothing irrational about not wanting to acquire something that is lots of excess fat that kills 350,000 Americans a year. There's nothing irrational. If anything's irrational, it's wanting to stay fat. That's very irrational. Fat activists have health phobia. They have good health phobia. They have good mobility phobia. They have longevity phobia. In summary, there is nothing wrong with wanting a smaller waist. Have a good day.